Venus just moved into the sign of Capricorn, where it'll be staying for 4 whole months. This is a big deal. Getting in touch with what you truly need, want, and deeply desire in your relationships. This is a really great time to revisit things from your past that bring you joy. Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another special extended forecast. And this one is actually for November 18th of 2021 all the way through to March 2nd of 2022. This is a 4-month forecast. And the reason I'm doing a 4-month forecast is because Venus just moved into the sign of Capricorn, where it'll be staying for 4 whole months. This is a big deal. Part of the reason it's a big deal is because Venus is actually going to be going retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. It's going to station to go retrograde on December 19th, right before the holiday season. It's going to be making a bunch of conjunctions to Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, transformation, intensity, polarity, taking things to extremes. And it's actually going to make an exact conjunction with Pluto on Christmas Day. And this is an energy that's going to be lasting from now, again, all the way through to March. It's actually not even March 2nd, it's March 5th. I misspoke on that. So we have this like extended, super long period from November 5th all the way through to March 5th. 4 months long, where Capricorn, or the house that's occupied by the sign of Capricorn in your chart, will be undergoing a major rebalancing, reharmonization, a major transformation because of that Plutonian component that's been ongoing in that house for you, but is being activated very intensively over the course of these next few months. This is big news. And Venus only goes retrograde roughly once every year and a half or so. And so it's not one of those planets like Mercury that's constantly going retrograde, because that happens 3 times a year, right? And the outer planets, so Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, those go retrograde once every year. But we have these 2 inner planets, Mars and Venus, that don't go retrograde every single year, that they don't go retrograde quite as often as the other planets do because of their position in the within the solar system and our perspective on that position from where we are here on Earth. And so when Venus goes retrograde, it's felt. It's something that lasts a long time. Venus usually only spends about 6 weeks in a certain sign, and it's spending 4 whole months in this sign. But Venus, of course, is a benefic planet. And so when Venus goes retrograde, it's not as turbulent or challenging as Mars, or even Mercury being a neutral planet that Mercury is. And so we can see a lot of really incredible benefits that'll come to us through this Venus retrograde. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, I just want to mention, for those of you who are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I create new videos and upload them every single Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and so you'd never want to miss one of those. Even if you're not new to my channel, the way that I structure my forecast videos is that I always start with a 5 to 10 minute general overview of the energy. Please don't skip this, because it's going to provide an important context for what we'll be discussing in the more personalized forecast for all 12 signs. And speaking of which, when we do get into the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure you listen to your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the week, or for the next 4 months ahead. Even more important, your rising sign is going to be the most predominant energy, the most accurate. Your sun sign will be secondary, and the moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this energy will be a little bit more internalized and subjective. Finally, at the end of this video, I'm going to be doing a quick rundown and overview of some of the biggest energies that we're going to be experiencing in 2022. The reason that I'm doing this is because this Venus retrograde is one of those energies that will be ushering us into 2022, since it's kind of transcending the boundaries between 2021 and the following year in 2022. And, you know, there's a lot of shift going on around the time that we're shifting from the Gregorian calendar year of 2021 to the Gregorian calendar year of 2022. And so it's a big thing. And so I'll be discussing that a little bit at the end of this video. So stick around until the end if you're interested in that. I'm also doing a super extended, very comprehensive webinar about the energy, the astrology of 2022. It's 2 hours long. It's called Navigating the Astrology of 2022. And you can join in. The link to join is down in the description below. It's going to be a part of my Cosmic Community membership. You can join and get a 7-day free trial and watch for free. The main takeaway is I want you guys to have this information, and a lot of this information is not something that I would share on YouTube because of the current state of affairs on YouTube and the likelihood that events could transpire should I talk freely and openly about what's going on out there in the world. Not even saying that I'm going to talk about controversial, like crazy stuff, but the algorithms get triggered quite easily these days. So anyway, moving back into the forecast for the Venus retrograde. So let's start with kind of a general overview of what Venus retrograde actually creates for people, by transit specifically. In the birth chart, it's a little bit different, but by transit, Venus retrograde does a few different things. And so first and foremost, we know Venus is the planet that rules love and relationships. And so when Venus is in retrograde, you can find that old relationships will come back into the woodwork, that will come back around, and all of a sudden you'll have to revisit these connections with people that you thought had passed, you thought you've moved on from. And that can be good or that can be bad. It just kind of depends on how this is showing up in your chart, and the types of relationships that will come back around. That will also depend on where this is occurring in your chart, the house that is occupied by Capricorn, which we'll be discussing in the overview in the forecast for all 12 signs. The other thing that you really have to be aware of is that when you meet new people, when Venus is in retrograde, it's very unlikely that you're seeing them clearly or that they're presenting themselves in the way that they normally are. And so when you meet somebody new during a Venus retrograde, and I've seen this happen a million times, you're going to misjudge people. It's either because they're presenting themselves differently, or you are kind of reading them differently or experiencing a different side of them that is not their usual. And so when you enter into a new relationship, like a romantic partnership during a Venus retrograde, I've seen this happen many, many times where when Venus goes direct, you're kind of like, no, this is kind of fizzling out. This is not the man I thought he was, or the woman I thought she was, or whatever it is. And you start to kind of question, and it doesn't usually last. When it does last, and I've seen Venus retrograde relationships that last a very long time, it's typically very on again, off again. And so that's another thing to kind of just be aware of. It doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship or enter into a relationship when Venus is in retrograde, but there are certain energies that will carry on through the relationship that I've noticed that can be a little bit more challenging or problematic. Unless you are a natal Venus retrograde person or your partner is a natal Venus retrograde person, then they might experience the relationship that's initiated during the Venus retrograde much more positively. So that's another thing to make note of. Venus also represents our experience of joy and pleasure, especially on a material, physical level. And that's where it also gets its association with like money and material objects, material possessions. And so during this time, a couple of different things. This is a really great time to revisit things from your past that bring you joy, that help you to feel happy and creative and connected and balanced, right? This is a good time to find a balance between work and being dead serious and just doing things that feel good. That is what Venus is good for. Think about the energy of like Venus ruling Taurus. Taurus is very sensory and sensual, and it's all about the tactile experience, the physical experience, the things that smell and look and taste really, really good, right? That's something that, a Taurus energy, a strong Taurus energy would appreciate, is like the gifts of this material reality. This could bring back a newfound appreciation for some of the gifts in this material reality that you might have skipped over or missed out on in the past, or feel like you missed out on in the past. This could also be a reversal of financial situations that maybe we're going forward in one direction and then you realize you have to backtrack and sort of rebalance, reconfigure, reconvene before moving forward. But if a new financial transaction kind of happens during this time, or like an investment or something like that, it could literally bring the opposite, right? So starting something new during any retrograde is always a little tricky, especially when it's a thing that is associated with the significations of the planet that's in retrograde. And so you want to just kind of be double and triple checking that, and just be aware that if you're signing a contract, if you're coming into an agreement or a negotiation with somebody for the very first time during a Venus retrograde, that negotiation is not going to be what you think it is. And the terms of the agreement, verbal or even written, those terms could change. Just like the, relationships you enter into, like those relationships will change and the agreements that you enter into will change. This isn't the best time, even though you can find this newfound appreciation or revisit this appreciation for the material realm, which is a healthy way to use this energy. It's not a good time to make very pricey, luxurious purchases. And so that's going to be an interesting energy with Venus retrograde and the holiday season coming to pass. You might feel like you want to go and make these luxurious purchases, but these are things that you might later come to regret when Venus is direct and everything is moving forward. The thing it's really great for is bargains. So finding really great bargains on things. So if you're waiting until the last minute to do your holiday shopping after December 19th, you might find some excellent deals on things. And that could be a really great way to utilize that energy. The other thing it's really good for is purchasing things that are used or vintage or antique, especially things that need to be refurbished and made beautiful once again, right? That's a really great way to use this Venus retrograde energy. It's one of my favorites. I always find things just like on the side of the road or in like the free, thing on Craigslist and whatnot that are like beautiful pieces of furniture and just different things like that during the Venus retrogrades. And those end up sticking with me and coming with me, wherever I end up moving, because, it's like a really good find. It just needs a little polishing, a little fixing up. So that's a really great thing that you could do as well. So repurposing something or refurbishing something or buying something refurbished as a gift, that could be a really great way to use this energy, or for yourself. That's fine too. And so that's going to be a big part of this energy. And so that's kind of just like the general Venus retrograde experience. There's one more thing that comes up for a lot of people during the Venus retrograde, and this is this sort of like latent or hidden experience of feeling either like unlovable or undesirable or unworthy of other people's praise or affection. This is something that is kind of innate in Venus retrograde people. And when Venus is in retrograde, especially if it's hitting your sun, moon, rising, one of your like really personal planets or configurations in your chart, which again, we'll talk about a little bit more, this could cause you to feel unattractive, unlovable, unworthy, even if you might actually be outwardly more attractive during that time, with Venus really strong in the skies, you're not going to necessarily feel as good about yourself when Venus is in retrograde. And so that can be a thing too. So you do want to just cultivate an awareness around that. And if that is something that comes up for you, just know that it's something that's been inside of you all along, right? This Venus retrograde is just bringing it out into the open. The transits can't activate anything that's not already there in your chart and in your experience. It's just bringing it out and making it more predominant for a period of time. And so this is a good time to work on healing through this sense of maybe being unloved or unlovable or unworthy in one way or another. And that kind of brings us back to the energy of relationships, right? And so when we talk about Venus, the main thing people think about is relationships. And with this Venus retrograde, and this is where we're getting into the nitty gritty of what's happening this time around, we're going to have three major transits that will be ongoing, on and off, on and off. We're going to have Venus trine Uranus. That's going to happen on November 18th and on January 29th. It'll be very near exact when Venus stations direct on January 29th. So these two periods, the beginning of the Venus retrograde shadow on November 18th and the trine to Uranus on November or January 29th when Venus stations to go direct. These are prominent moments. And let me actually backtrack here. Let's start with the whole story of the Venus retrograde because there's a lot to untangle here. So Venus is in Capricorn already. It's staying there until March 3rd. It'll be in its pre-shadow period, which means it'll be moving over the same degrees that it'll move over backwards in retrograde. And it'll be in its pre-shadow period from November 18th to December 19th. From December 19th to January 29th, Venus will be in retrograde. And then from January 29th to March 2nd, Venus will be in its post-shadow. So it'll be once again for the final time covering those same degrees in the zodiac. And those degrees are actually going to be 11 degrees Capricorn through 26 degrees Capricorn. So if you have any planets within those degrees, especially in Capricorn, but in any of the cardinal signs or any of the earth signs, you're going to be feeling this most strongly. And so that's what we're dealing with here. And so when we talk about these aspects, these three major aspects that'll be occurring, these will be occurring for the most part 3 times. It won't be occurring 3 times for the Venus trine Uranus because of the way it's stationing in that trine with Uranus. It'll happen twice, but it'll the Venus conjunction to Pluto and the Venus sextile to Neptune that we're going to be talking about, those will happen 3 times. And each time you're sort of scrubbing over this planetary energy and having to revisit it and revisit it and revisit it until the lessons learned, until the thing, that needs to transpire actually transpires, which usually reaches its resolution point during that post-shadow period. So this is an ongoing saga, an ongoing story. And hopefully you'll be able to come back to this video for the next 4 months when you're like, what the heck is going on? Because this is a lot of ground we're covering. Okay, and so let's kind of get into that. So Venus trine Uranus, November 18th through January 29th. Those are the 2 main dates. So Venus, it's the planet of love, relationships, harmony, beauty, balance, joy, pleasure, all of those things that we mentioned. It's going to be in Capricorn. Venus in Capricorn, first and foremost, shows its love and appreciation in a way that's typically very conventional and very practical. These are energies where maybe you want to, for Christmas, because this is happening during the holiday season or for whatever holiday you celebrate, you want to give gifts that are like very usable, very down to earth, very practical. Like this has a lot of practical application. This person will get a lot of use with it as opposed to getting something luxurious or more grandiose. And that's kind of like the vibe overall. That's how you're showing you love someone. You need this thing. I'm going to help you by getting you this thing or doing this thing for you, right? That's Venus in Capricorn. I'm going to help you be more successful because I'm going to give you this. So that Venus trine to Uranus alters the energy slightly. Because Uranus is the planet that's about things that are unconventional or unusual or unique in some way. This is also kind of a mitigating influence too, because we've had Venus squaring Saturn, which is going to be super exact during the Venus retrograde period on December 24th, so Christmas Eve. That's when it's coming exact for the final pass, but it's active now in November all the way through March. So these two configurations of the Venus retrograde and the Saturn square Uranus being exact and tight and activated, like these two things are happening congruently at the same exact time, and it's going to be very hard to pull those two energies apart because they're working together, right? They're activated at the same time, and Venus is the dispositor of Uranus in this situation, so it's a whole big web, right? And so we're going to be seeing a lot of interesting energy with the financial markets. I think that, there's a lot of positive energy with this Venus retrograde where I almost feel like there's going to be some sort of reformation or some sort of reconfiguring that could actually improve things or prevent some of the Saturn Uranus issues that I know are going to be coming up with the economy and especially the supply chain over the Christmas season. I mean, we already know that's happening even without the astrology, but that's going to be a bigger thing for sure. And with the labor force, which we'll talk about in my webinar. That's going to be happening, but I feel like almost Venus in retrograde will be a response to that, where it's like we have to tackle the core of these issues and sort of redo some stuff or revoke some things or kind of backtrack on the agreements that we've made, so that way we can make sure that things don't completely just implode in on themselves. And I think that's going to be a big part of that Venus retrograde energy. And part of that is because Venus is in trine with Uranus. Uranus in Taurus is a big reason, especially with that square to Saturn, why we've been experiencing issues with the supply chain, why we've been experiencing interesting energies just kind of in general around those. I'll get into that more in the other webinar, but this is I think it's gonna be like a response to that. That's kind of my sense and what I'm kind of seeing here in the astrology. So kind of going back, so we have Venus trine Uranus. That is a mitigating influence. It's going to also on a personal level help mitigate a lot of the challenges that we've been experiencing on a personal level, where we've had these issues where we have to like jump in and change something, all of a sudden force ourselves into a new reality that we might not feel prepared for. It's like we're jamming ourselves into like this is what Raphael described it as. It's like we're pushing ourselves into a hole that like doesn't fit. Like we don't fit in this hole yet, but we have to squeeze. I like that analogy because that's that Saturn, right? It's like restrictive, and that Uranus where it's like, it's chaos. We have to do it. It's like we have to change. We have to like go in there. So that's part of what we've been experiencing, and this I think will be a way for us to kind of use our connections to rebalance and to figure out solutions, because this is that resolution point of that transit. So we're going to be going through that. It'll be interesting. We'll have a lot of positive changes, I think, on a personal level that can come through this on a financial, a material level, but also on an interpersonal level to some degree. A lot of people, not every single person, obviously. And then we'll have Venus actually sextiling Neptune throughout this entire period. So that'll happen on November 30th, January 5th, and then finally on February 24th. I mean, that's a beautiful, compassionate energy, and I feel like that's something that we really need. It's like practical compassion with Venus in the sign of Capricorn, where it's like, I feel, empathy or sympathy, or, I feel something for what you're going through, and I want to do something very pragmatic, very useful to actually help you with what you need, right? This isn't about like virtue signaling. This isn't about pretending to do something really good so that way you can look like you're charitable or whatever. This isn't like you're going and feeding a homeless person on the street and videotaping it to go viral on YouTube. That's not what this is about. This is about true compassion that you're doing for selfless reasons. And I feel like people during this period actually will be feeling more compassionate. And I think that's something we definitely could use, that empathy, that ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything they believe, right? Remember when we used to do that? Remember when we used to have disagreements when it came to our opinions and ideologies, but we still could be friends and we still could, go to the dinner table and have calm, rational conversations about things, pre all the stuff. I feel like we could come back to that a little bit with this energy, but you have to consciously activate it with the sextile. It's not as overt. And so it's there for the taking if you feel inclined. This is also a really good creative energy, and I think this would be a great time for people who create out of a space of like reusing things. So like artwork that's made from like, recycled materials and like random objects that are found and things like that. This could be a really great energy around those things. And maybe that'll be a more popular gift for the holiday season even. We'll see. And then the final configuration that I want to talk about, and this is going to be, I think, the most impactful, is the Venus conjunction to Pluto. And so this is occurring 3 times, but it's really going to be like heavily activated all of December. So you're going to be feeling this literally all throughout the entire month of December. It's going to be really intense. And that's that energy of really getting in touch with what you truly need, want, and deeply desire in your relationships, in your material sort of realm, in the ability to experience joy and passion in your life in a way that's grounded and practical, where you're not kind of like flying off the handle with it. All of these things you're going to be getting in touch with. And it's not just like surface level, this is like deep. So this is you figuring out the roots of what you actually need on a core level to have a satisfying, successful, committed, loyal partnership. And that goes for people who are in or not in partnership. And the types of relationships, obviously the context, all 12 signs will get into that. But in general, that's the energy. So it's going to be like a huge one. And so the exact configurations, the exact conjunctions between Venus and Pluto are going to be ongoing. So December 11th is the first pass, December 25th on Christmas Day. Something about that energy of the holidays is going to show us what matters to us on a material level and what matters to us on a soul level when it comes to our connections, right? Those things are going to be very prominent. And then finally, the last pass will be on March 3rd of 2022. And so that's when we'll see a resolution point. That's where I think we'll see a lot of people purging and ending relationships, or purging and ending financial commitments, or purging literally their stuff, which could be a good thing to do during the holiday season as well. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the big energy, the three passes. Again, I'll talk about this a lot more in the Navigating the Astrology of 2022 webinar in terms of the overarching energies and the general themes. But that's what I have for you right now. So let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. But before we do, I just want to mention that I have a free gift for all of you, my Astrology 101 PDF guide. This is a all-encompassing reference guide that'll help you understand these forecasts, as well as my tutorial videos and just your own chart in general. It covers the big three, sun, moon, and rising. It covers the planets, signs, houses, aspects, and more. It's your ultimate guide to understanding what the heck I'm talking about when I use all of this astrological language here. And it's my free gift to you. The link is down in the description below, so you can download that right now. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so let's get started, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. And so for Aries, Venus is going to be retrograding in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. You might be revisiting old career-related connections, or even if you're not somebody who's working, you could be revisiting, or who's ever worked even, you could be revisiting old connections with people in positions of power and authority. This is a great time also for you to figure out what you truly need, want, and desire in general when it comes to your career path, in general when it comes to the legacy that you're leaving behind after work, but especially when it comes to like the relationships, the connections, the creativity, the craft that you actually do out in the world. What do you need to feel joyful about what it is that you're putting out there into the world through your career or through other means? That's going to be a big question during this Venus retrograde period that will hopefully be answered. This could also be a time where you might be making some changes or some adjustments to agreements, or to even like projects and plans and things like that. But you're making some adjustments to your career path in order to make it more satisfying overall, and to make it so what it is that you're putting out in the world has deeper meaning, and so that you're feeling connected to something or someone or other people in a bigger way too. These changes that you're making could also have financial implications that could be quite positive. And so you've been kind of working through trying to create greater financial independence, or changing something involving your finances, or your finances have just been changing. That situation's just been there. This is a time where you can find a resolution. This is a time where you can find that freedom that you desire, or make those changes that you want to make. This is also a time where you're going to be doing a lot of deep contemplation, and you might actually be reincorporating or for the first time in your life, incorporating spiritual concepts, spiritual practices, a spiritual or creative understanding of the world, and applying that to the work that you're doing out in the world. So this could be a great time to merge the realms of spirituality, creativity, and work, career, and fulfillment, and the joy that you get through those realms. And so this is a great time for all of those things. And I think for Aries in general, this is going to be a fruitful time where you're getting much better aligned with what you value, with what you need in the workplace in general, and on a physical and financial level. So for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy with the Venus retrograde is happening in your ninth house, which is the house of your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you, your values and ideologies that shape and frame your perception of reality. This is a time where you might be kind of revisiting or coming back into a different sort of balance or harmony when it comes to these value systems. You might be revisiting old connections, maybe through a religious organization or through actually a higher educational organization. And so if you're somebody who went to college, for example, you could have your old college roommate or friends or teachers even come back around into your consciousness or come back into your life for a reason or for a season during this Venus retrograde period. This is also a time where you might have some strong new connections coming in when it comes to teaching, education, maybe finding new teachers. If that's the case, these people are not going to be exactly what you think they are. Even with that Pluto energy, which causes you to be able to see things very clearly for what they truly and actually are. It's not going to be. They're going to show up in a way that's extreme in one direction, and in reality, under normal circumstances, they're sort of extreme in another direction. And that's something that with this Venus conjunction to Pluto, that kind of also needs to be pointed out, is that Pluto works in extremes. And so when you have Venus conjunct Pluto, we're going to be taking things to extremes when it comes to our relationships, our finances, our material sort of connections to the world, the things that bring us joy, all of that, right? We're going to be taking things to extremes. And so, with this Venus conjunction to Pluto and with what's going on here in the ninth house, this could be somebody coming back into your life that has an extreme viewpoint or belief system or ideology, and you could be swayed by that. Or it could be that you have an extreme belief system or ideology, and, a reconnection with a friend makes you realize that this is a little too far, in one direction or the other. And so that's something to just kind of make note of. The reframing and reconnecting you're going to be doing. So this could also be you reconnecting to past educational pursuits, especially in the creative realms and things like that. But the reconnection that you're working on here, it's going to serve to help you to change and to create more freedom for yourself. Whatever it is that you're going through, this process of learning to understand what you truly need, want, and desire when it comes to your belief systems, especially, and to connect that with your integrity, that's going to create a lot of freedom and a lot of fulfillment for you. So it's kind of like a liberating energy. You're discovering what you truly believe, and you're discovering who is on board with that. And that's going to help you to feel more comfortable being more true to yourself, being more who you are out in the world, even if other people think it's strange. This is also a time where you're going to feel a lot greater compassion toward other people. This could be a great time for you to take your ideologies and turn it into something where you're giving back to other people, to, like, on a grander scale, to humanity. You're also going to have more compassionate, more spiritual connections with friends and groups of people that you surround yourself with by choice, especially like-minded friends who share the same passions and the same, again, belief systems and ideologies and things like that. You might be able to get people on board to come together for a common cause, especially if that cause is sort of like repurposing things, right? Like collecting old items for like Christmas or something to give to people. It could be something as simple as that. And this would actually be a great energy for something like that for Taurus. Okay, and then for Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Gemini, this Venus retrograde, it's happening in your eighth house, which is the house of Well, it's an intense house. It's the house of death and rebirth. It's the house of transformation. It's the house of deep psychological issues and anxieties. It's the house of the occult. It's the house of power and control issues and where those tend to reside. It's joint finances. It's taxes. It's inheritance. It's all of these things. And so all of these things are going to be up for review and revisiting throughout this time. An old agreement or an old contract or an old investment even that you made in the past could come back around to be revisited in a very extreme way, especially in December, where it might be an extreme payout or an extreme loss. It just kind of depends on what end of the spectrum you're on and how this played out probably to begin with, astrologically speaking. But this could also be a reversal or a revisiting. So a reversal of fortune when it comes to your partner's resources, or a reversal of some sort of financial issue involving a partnership, or a revisiting of an issue involving your partner's resources, or a revisiting of an issue involving a financial partnership. I would say that new investment opportunities that come around during the Venus retrograde period specifically could be not exactly what they seem. They could be too good to be true. You could have either extreme gains or extreme losses from such things. But the not seeing things clearly. So you might think it's a bad investment and it ends up being a really good one, or you might think it's a good one and it ends up being a really bad one. So it's not a time where you're going to be able to gauge that correctly. And there could be a lot of big extreme ups and downs that come to you financially over the next few months, and that's something to be aware of as well. But this is actually a really nice time for you to kind of turn inward. So this is a time of really deep healing where a lot of old psychological issues involving power and control in relationships and old traumas and anxieties around relationships could be brought back out into the open, not necessarily through reliving them, but they could be coming up in your mind. There could be certain situations that come up that are triggering, and you realize that there's something that you need to heal through, right? And that could be a really great way to utilize this energy. This is also a great energy for diving in or diving back into some sort of occult science or study that maybe you're studying behind closed doors. Other people might think it's strange or it's unusual, it's different in some way. And, it brings you joy, though. It brings you satisfaction. And this could be a great time for that. That could especially come up in November and in January for you. This is also a time where you might be revisiting financial connections tied to your work or business, or to somebody in a position of power and authority, in a way where you feel a lot more compassionate toward the other parties, and where things are more mutually beneficial moving forward. Okay. And for Cancer rising. So for Cancer, Venus is going to be retrograding and just transiting your seventh house for the next 4 months of your life. And so this is going to be an extra intense focus on relationships. You are going to learn what you need in relationship backwards, frontwards, upside down. You are going to know yourself better than you've ever known yourself when it comes to your relationship connections and the way you operate in relationship. This is going to be a big unveiling of those things. If you had relationship issues that were really exposed and came out into the forefront in very extreme ways, especially in 2020, these things might be revisited in some way. You might have to reevaluate this energy. You might have to come back and redo something to reestablish a deeper, more trustworthy connection with a partnership. This is also a time where old relationships can come back around to either be healed through or transformed or purged once and for all. And so that's something that could come up for some people. New relationships that come in, especially intimate partnerships during this time period, are not to be trusted for what they appear to be on the surface. And so you might think but they're going to be showing up in a way that's sort of one extreme version of who they are, but not who they normally present themselves as, if that makes sense. So it's a component, yes, of who they are, but it's not everything, and you're not seeing that relationship super clearly. And so just be aware of that, with the new connections that do come in during this time. there is going to be an enhanced compassion for the people that you connect with one-on-one, for the people that you're closest to, a revisiting of compassion, right? Toward people that maybe you lost compassion or empathy toward for one reason or another. Maybe you've been burned, they've been disloyal, maybe you've lost trust. And now is a time where you're going to be able to kind of open your heart, open your mind, expand your perspective, and see their point of view. This is also a time where, in general, it's kind of a good time for revisiting friendships, especially with that Uranus connection in November and in January. This is a good time for revisiting old friendships and bringing them back into your life in a different sort of way. And so that could be a big part of this energy too. So there's a lot of relationship energy. Relationships are going to be at the forefront of your consciousness, and there's going to be a lot of action going on in that realm across the board. So for Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leo, this energy is happening in your sixth house, which is the house of work, health, and daily routines. Venus is going to be, so this could actually be a revisiting of old connections related to your work. So it could be like old coworkers that you forgot about, that you used to connect with, that come back around. This could be old connections involving health or even involving pets, right? It could be that you adopted a pet from somebody and then you see them on the street somewhere, or they connect with you in some way. That could very literally be a part of this for some very specific people. But this could be a revisiting of what you truly need, want, and desire, and what brings you joy and satisfaction and pleasure in the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. Even if you're not somebody who's working, this is you looking at how you can experience more joy, harmony, balance, and pleasure on a day-to-day level in your mundane, routine activities. This could be you bringing more creativity into your day-to-day life. This could be you bringing more deep and intense connection with other people into your day-to-day life, or working with people one-on-one really intensely. This could be you finding the right connection, the right person, to kind of come back around and revisit an old health issue and maybe help you get to the bottom of it. That could be part of this too. But this is you really restructuring and reconvening and figuring out what you truly need, want, and desire for your work in order to create the freedom, the liberation, the excitement that you desire when it comes to what it is that you're putting out there in the world. And this could also be a reconfiguration of the connections that you have with people in positions of power and authority. There's something that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, though, to rebalance and create harmony. It's almost like you have to reset, and then all of the changes that you've been wanting to make in your career, especially at the start of next year, will really start to unfold very naturally as a result of that. Also, money or finances could come in through an outside source. That could be a part of this configuration as well, or it could be that you want to donate or give back in some way, or invest in something. Again, just make sure that these things are, make sure that you're seeing them clearly, or hold off if you can. But yeah, so that's what's going on for Leo and for Leo rising. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, this is actually a really pleasant energy all across the board for Virgos, especially if you're a Virgo sun, moon, or rising anywhere around 10 or 11 degrees, where you're having actually 10 to 12 degrees, where you're having Uranus in a really nice trine with your ascendant sun or moon. Venus will be activating that trine in November and again at the end of January, and it's going to be super powerful. This could be a life-changing experience where you finally feel liberated. You finally feel like you're living in alignment with your integrity. You finally feel like you're living in alignment with the things that you're passionate about, that bring you so much joy and so much pleasure on a day-to-day level. This could be you really getting in touch with your creativity and using it in a transformative and very practical way. This could be for some of you, with Venus retrograding your fifth house, revisiting old flames. So the fifth house is the house that has to do not with like marriage and really substantial romantic partnerships on that level, like long term. It's the house that deals with like love affairs, flings, sex, things that are done in relationship just for pleasure, but not necessarily because it's something, it's not that stable partnership energy. So it's almost like romance and sexuality and like, things like that, as opposed to true commitment. And so you might actually have old flames coming back around, messaging you, finding you on social media, giving you a call or something along those lines. And these were people that maybe you didn't take seriously in the past. Maybe this time you're figuring out what you truly need, want, and desire in that area. And maybe you want to bring that back around. Maybe you do want to revisit that relationship, or maybe this is a time where you very easily can let go of it and move past it. Maybe you've always wondered what could have been, but you never really got there with somebody. That could be a part of this energy. New flings, new love affairs, new sexual encounters that occur during this Venus retrograde. They'll be intense. They'll be very passionate, but they're not going to be what you think they are later on. And so just be very aware of that. Have fun, but know that it's not what it seems to be. This is also a time where if you are in partnership during this Venus retrograde, like a long-term committed partnership, you might re-solidify that commitment. You might feel much more compassionate and much more deeply and spiritually connected with your partner on a soul level. So you're sort of reconnecting on that spiritual plane. And also, you might rekindle the emotional and physical desire, the emotional and physical flame with your partner during this time. And that could be really powerful. And then again, we have this configuration with the trine. So you have overall a really, really great energy with the Venus retrograde. Okay. And so for Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libras, Venus is going retrograde in your fourth house, which is the house of home, family, property, and real estate. This could be you revisiting old connections with family members. This could be you diving deep into your ancestry or reconnecting with your ancestry in some way. This could be you healing through relationship issues in the family. So issues that you have, in your family connections in some way, where you're really getting to the bottom of it and you're figuring out what's truly the cause of these issues, who's truly to blame, if there anybody is to blame, what your role actually is in these types of things. This could be a really great time for some sort of family counseling or therapy if that's something that's needed, and it could go quite well. This is also where you could be doing something very physical in the home. So like this is a great time for renovating or refurbishing something, especially during that retrograde period. So December 19th through January 29th. This could be a really great time for like repainting something in your house, or like refurbishing something in your house. Don't paint it for the first time. So like an example of this would be last time Venus was in retrograde, I decided I was going to paint our living room, and I did it all myself, and it was like a ton of work. And the first layer of the color, was, it seemed like it was all right, but it was covering a really dark color. And then by the second coat, I was like, this is bright pink. This is not, I was going for like a dusty kind of purple, off-whitey dust color, and it's like super pink. It looks like Laffy Taffy and it still looks that way, right? So you don't want to like jump into renovating or changing something aesthetically in your home for the very first time. But if you were somebody who did something like that and you need to redo it, now would be a time when you might be able to do that. This is also a good time for maybe like refinancing. For people who are Libra Rising, like for a mortgage or something involving your home, especially because this is going to be in a really nice trine with Uranus in your 8th house, which has to do with debt, right? And so this could be a time where you could refinance and you could, alleviate some burden in some way, or make a really important change that creates more freedom for you financially through that reconfiguration of the home. This is also a time where really you're getting in touch with what you truly need, want, and desire behind the scenes after work, what you want to come home to, what you want your home environment to look like, to feel like, what you need it to be. And that's going to be a big part of this energy too. You could also have old family members who you haven't spoken to in quite some time come back around and contact you in some way, for better or for worse, but you're going to feel a lot of compassion toward them, I think. Overall, not a bad energy for Libra. I will say though that because this is squaring your ascendant sun or moon, and because this is either the ruler or the dispositor of your ascendant sun or moon, you're going to be feeling this more strongly than a lot of the other signs. And there could be power struggles and intensity in relationships with people, on a romantic level and on that family level, that could come up for you during this time, that you might have to work through and figure out what to do with that energy, right? So That's what's going on for Libra. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpios, this is actually a little bit nicer than a lot of what you've been experiencing. Not only is this mitigating the Saturn-Uranus square, which has been ongoing in your fourth and in your seventh house, so the angular houses, which is really intense, that's kind of disrupting a lot of the fundamentals, a lot of the foundational areas of your life. This is going to be providing a little bit of like an alleviation of burden, an alleviation of chaos. This could help you to reconvene or reconfigure your close personal relationships in a really positive way, where you can make some really positive changes together or reevaluate or reestablish changes that you made in the past in a way that's going to be very beneficial. This is a time where you're going to be seeking the truth. So this is not a time where you're going to want surface level connections with people, but you're going to think about deep connections, deep conversations, deep intellectually stimulating moments in time that you've had with others. And you're going to want to revisit those energies and other people in your life that you've had these powerful, these powerful experiences with in conversation, in communication and community. These people can come back around during this time so you can revisit those connections. This is also a great time where you might be doing some sort of rebalancing or reharmonizing on a mental plane. It's kind of like decluttering your mind. But this could also be you doing a rebalancing or reconfiguring when it comes to writing or marketing or courses. If you're taking courses or teaching courses where you have to kind of go back and like reestablish some sort of balance, or maybe even like redo things aesthetically. That's actually what I'm doing during this time. I'm taking my Cosmic Academy of Astrology on the back end, and we have actually moved it to a new platform, and I'm going to be going through and redesigning the aesthetic components of it during this time. And that's something that you could do, like something along those lines that could be very powerful and be very useful during this Venus retrograde period. This is a time where you could have old connections with like extended family members, neighbors from like past places of living, past residences, siblings, things like that come back around to be revisited or transformed or healed in some way. And this is actually just a really great time, I would say, to revisit something that you've been learning about in the past that was really creative or really maybe spiritually connected, where it's something that felt really good to you. So there's something that you used to learn about and engage with and stimulate your mind with that had a lot of creative value or a lot of spiritual value in your life, and maybe you've let it fall away. This is a time where you could revisit that, or you could reconnect with a teacher who could help you to revisit that. And so that's a really great use of this energy too. On sort of a mundane level, you could be making some sort of change or revisiting some sort of change to like a vehicle. So it could be a good time to refinance a vehicle or something like that, or to renegotiate a contract involving a vehicle. This could also be you revisiting something involving your commute or short distance travel, or a connection with somebody who is in like a neighboring town or something like that. That could be part of this too. And so all of those things are possible. This would be a good time for getting like a used car if that's something that you're interested in doing. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius Rising. So for Sagittarius, this energy is happening in your second house. So you'll have a 4-month period where Venus, which has to do with material possessions and money and things like that, is transiting your second house of finances. You've been going through a process of transforming the way that you deal with your money and your resources. Maybe you've been working on paying off debts. Maybe you've been working on empowering yourself to create resources in a new way. Maybe there's been power struggles and control issues with finances on and off for like the last year or so. Either way, this is a point in time where you're going to be revisiting that energy, and there's going to be a need to restructure the way that you deal with your resources. Something's going to be revealed to you during this time period that's going to be just right in your face, hidden in plain sight, that involves what you truly need, want, and desire when it comes to your financial situation and the way that you deal with your financial situation. There could be an old debt that comes back around that you have to revisit that you thought maybe you paid off. There could be an old opportunity on a financial level that comes back around, like a new partnership or something like that, that brings in money. Or an old partnership, I should say, that brings in money that comes back around. Or it could be that there's just a need to rebalance your budget, reharmonize in that area. So that way you can have what you truly need, want, and desire when it comes to your financial security and stability moving forward. There's also an energy where you've been working really hard to change something, to rebel against your current circumstances when it comes to your day-to-day work life and experience. And so there's been some changes. There's been some need to pivot. You've been coming up against some challenge, and the results of those challenges have been you making changes to your day-to-day reality, to your day-to-day routines, and especially to your work. If you've been making those changes, this could be a time where you get to experience some financial rewards from those changes, especially at the end of January when we have the final pass of Venus in your second house, trining Uranus in your sixth. And so you might have to go back and redo something, revisit something, reconfigure something, make some additional changes to enhance the financial viability of whatever it is that you're doing when it comes to your work. Maybe it's a side hustle. But after that's all said and done into the new year, you're going to be much better off for it. This is not the best time to be making first time luxury purchases on things, just as a side note. This is one of those configurations where, for Sagittarius people in particular, you might regret that. However, this is a great time during the Venus retrograde from December 19th through January 29th for you to refurbish something or to purchase something that's refurbished. This is a great time to purchase something used or to find a really great bargain on something that you really need, especially if you need it for the home, to beautify the home, because this is also going to be revisiting the need to maybe spend a little money or invest some money in making your home a sanctuary. So if it's something that you need for the home, like materials for a renovation or for furniture or something like that, then this could be a really great time to find a good bargain, or to find something refurbished. And this is also a really great time for you to invest money in something used or, again, refurbished or repurposed for your work and to aid you in the changes that you've been wanting to make in your work or in your health. That could be a big part of it too. This could be you revisiting your diet. This is a great time for like a fast or a purge or a detox of some kind in order to change something with your health. Especially in December. Like, it's around the holidays, so you might not be wanting to do that, but it could even be that experience during the holidays makes you realize that you need to let go of something toxic, and doing that will help you to improve. So by the time we have the third pass of Venus conjunct Pluto at the start of March, you're like, wow, I feel great. And so that could be a part of this energy as well. For Capricorn and Capricorn Rising. So for Capricorn, Venus is retrograding in your sign. This is one of those moments in time where even if you're a Capricorn Sun, Moon, Rising, doesn't matter, you might be feeling a sense of you might be having issues with feeling unworthy, of feeling unlovable, of feeling undesirable, right? You might feel like awkward in your appearance, or you might feel like you really want to go in and change or enhance something in some way. I would say that this is not a good time for a makeover. It's not going to be exactly what it seems to be, when Venus goes direct. And so cosmetic procedures in general, when you have Venus in retrograde, are considered a no-no. This is a time period where, for Capricorns in particular, it's an extra no-no. So just kind of keep that in mind. But you might want to go back and revisit an old way of keeping up your appearance. And so it could be that there's an old style that you used to kind of dress. There's an old makeup routine you used to have, or an old way you used to cut your hair or do your hair in some way. And so this could be a time where you want to revisit that, or you have to kind of go back in and redo your hairstyle to be like how it was before, or something like that. And that could actually be really beneficial. It could help you to feel much more beautiful, much more attractive in a lot of ways. And so that's one way that you could use this energy. This is going to be you really getting in touch with any issues from your past that are impacting the way you value yourself, the way that you present yourself out in the world, and your self-worth. So if you are feeling a little lackluster, if you're feeling less desirable, desirable, if you're feeling less attractive, if you're feeling, just plain unlovable during this time, it's not something that's going to last, and it's not something that's necessarily normal for you. It's just something that's coming up because it needs to be addressed. Why do you feel this way, right? And for you in particular, a lot of old relationships could come back around out of the woodwork for you to revisit, to either kind of purge that relationship once and for all, for you to resolve some sort of lingering doubt in your mind, something like that. That could be part of it too. Or maybe to bring it back around and reintegrate it into your life because that relationship is renewed and transformed. That could be a part of this energy too. I would also say that this is a time where you're going to be getting in touch with everything that you're passionate about and the things that really bring you joy. There's something from your past that used to bring you a lot of joy on a personal level, that used to cause you to feel liberated and free and excited about life. And now's a time where you are going to bring that back into the mix, hopefully. And, maybe it'll last, maybe it'll stick this time. And so that's something. And also, your relationship with your children could be up for review. You might be already experiencing some rebelliousness or some change in that area. This is a time where you're going to be able to reconfigure and rebalance and harmonize that relationship with your children in a very positive way. It's going to be an ongoing process. It'll take like 4 months, but it's going to be a positive one. So that's part of this energy too. This is also where you're going to be communicating really deeply and intensely and very compassionately. Your psychic abilities, your psychic awareness is going to be opened up like really intensely during this time. And especially for those who are Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, anywhere from 25 to 27 degrees. I would say anywhere from 24 to 28 degrees, actually. You're going to be like, wah, 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 wah. Like third eye opened. But you're not going to want to like mess around with like surface level, small talk, anything right now. You're going to want to get to the deep stuff, to the good stuff. And that's going to be a big part of this as well. So like, what do you want in relationship? Do you want a bunch of acquaintances that are just like, la, 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 or do you want like deep, meaningful, trustworthy, loyal connections, which is what you want as a Capricorn rising in particular too, because you have that Scorpio in the 11th house. So you're going to be honing in on who is that and who is not that, and your role in facilitating relationships that are maybe not so good. Okay, and then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this is happening in your 12th house. And so this is a time of deep introspection. This is a time where you're going to be letting go. This is like an ending cycle where you have to kind of look at the repeating patterns that keep coming up for you over and over and over again when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to your finances and material connections, and when it comes to your self-worth and the way that you value yourself. This is the time where these repeating patterns are going to come back up and they're going to be in your face, they're going to be exposed, but you're going to be able to release them once and for all. This is also a time to take a deep dive into spirituality, or into some sort of something. This could be a really good time for you to dive in to studying something kind of behind the scenes or in secret with somebody else, especially pertaining to the occult or to spirituality in some way. That could actually be quite fruitful. This is a really important time for healing in order to change your relationships with your family members. And so if there's lingering issues there, now is a time where you can shake things up, where you can heal, where you can move past it. This is an interesting energy for Aquarius. I feel like some Aquarius people might be having secret affairs, or a secret affair could be exposed to an Aquarius person, not necessarily like your husband or something like that, but it's almost like there's some sort of relationship that's really intense and really passionate going on in secret, and that's going to come out of the woodwork, or that's going to be revealed. Or it could be that there was a secret relationship in the past that comes back around, or it could be an old flame that you're speaking with or that you are reconnecting with in secret. And so just know that that's not going to be exactly what you think it is once Venus moves direct, but it could be an important part of the healing process. If it's a new flame that you're seeing in secret, and you're like, oh, he loves me and he's going to leave his wife and it's all going to work out in the end. That's like one of those things where you're seeing what you want to see. just because that Venus retrograde, right? So whatever you think it is in the onset, it's not going to be that later on. So just kind of be aware of that as well. But this is a really great time for you to make changes behind the scenes involving your family or family dynamics, involving your home. This is a good time for you to study occult sciences and topics of that nature behind the scenes. And this is just a really great time for like rest and kind of pulling back from the day-to-day reality during this Venus period in the sign of Capricorn. You're going to find the most pleasure in solitude. And so that's something to kind of make note of as well. All right, and then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this energy is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, group associations, networks, and people that you surround yourself with by choice. This is a time where you're going to be reevaluating your group connections and associations. This is also when you're going to be getting really in touch with what you truly need, want, and desire on a core level. When it comes to your friendships, when it comes to your group associations, when it comes to your networks. This is also a time where old friendships that you thought you've kind of let go of or that you've forgotten about completely could come back around. So friends from the past, from the deep past, could come back around and contact you, and you might need to reintegrate those relationships, transform them in some way, transmute them, or let go of them, resolve those energies once and for all so you can move on. This is a really great time for you to reignite passions in romantic partnerships, especially if you're a Pisces ascendant anywhere from 11 to 26 degrees. This is a time where you're going to be reevaluating and reharmonizing your close personal relationships with others, especially in marriage, especially in long-term romantic partnership. And in general, this is a really great time for you to kind of reconfigure and reestablish your boundaries and your relationships just overall. Like, this is a great time for you to connect with new people in your community or reconnect with people that you maybe brushed off in the past because you thought they were strange or different in some way, or they didn't just vibe well. You could make some really important connections, especially in November, like around November 18th, and at the end of January, that could come back around in a very positive way. But overall, this is a more positive energy for Pisces. You're going to be feeling a lot more compassion toward other people in general. You're going to be feeling, like you really want to connect with people on a deeper level. This is another sign where it's not a good time for surface level acquaintances and niceties and those types of connections. You want something deeper, more loyal, more long lasting. And again, somebody from the past who fits that bill, who maybe didn't at the time, could come back around. And so that could be part of this energy too. But you're going to be feeling lit up. This is another sign also where your intuition and your psychic abilities will be enhanced. So you're going to be able to read people like a book. You're going to be able to see things that you couldn't otherwise see. And so take advantage of that while it lasts. Okay, and so that's my forecast for all 12 signs. And before we sign off here, because this is a 4-month forecast and it's going to be lasting through the start of 2022, instead of doing a overview or a short 2 to 3 minute preview of next week's forecast, because that's not relevant, I wanted to give just a brief overview of some of the changes that we'll be experiencing at the end of 2021 and in the start of 2022. So this is basically like an overview of what we're going to be covering, or some of what we'll be covering in my Navigating the Astrology of 2022 webinar, which is going to be happening on November 20th in my Cosmic community. You can sign up now. The link is down in the description below. You'll get a free trial membership for 7 days. And if you stick around after the webinar, you will have access to our 2021 forecast for each sign as well, along with all of the other exclusive tutorials and astrology content that we provide in the community. But basically what's going to be happening here is we're kind of ending 2021 and beginning 2022 with the Venus retrograde that we just discussed, and the Saturn square Uranus, which we discussed a little bit at the start of this video, which is going to be bringing a final resolution point to the turbulence and the stopping and starting and pivoting that we've been experiencing, the challenges we've been experiencing all year long. I'll have an exclusive special video covering just this specific energy next month for you, because it's coming exact on Christmas, but it's super active right now if you listen to my forecast for last week. So definitely check that out, where I talked about the new moon in Scorpio. I went really in depth into how that's going to be activated for that first 2 weeks. weeks of November, and it's going to continue to be activated through March, really. So hugely relevant, really important energy. But the other things that are happening, so we have the nodes shifting into Taurus and Scorpio at the very end of the month in December. And we're going to have our first eclipse in the sign of Taurus just next week. And that's going to be a preview of the energy that's to come. The disruption and the need for rebellion and liberation and change in areas of our life that have felt stagnant or dull or monotonous, or maybe have just felt too comfortable and now we need to be shaken out of it. That's that Uranus and Taurus energy. The North Node coming in and hitting that, oh my goodness, you guys, we are in for a whole massive, very rapid period of change in the middle of next year. And that's starting. We're going to start to see previews of that this month, next week. Actually, if you're watching this at the time that it's being released, we're going to be experiencing that, and it's going to be a big shakeup. The entire world is going to be moving into a new direction, the likes of which we haven't experienced yet. So if you can imagine, we've already gone through a lot of change on a global scale. That change is not done. It's not done for many years. And this is a big period of rapid change. And in our lives, the foundations we've been building with that Saturn-Uranus square, the small adjustments we've been making, the pivots that we've been kind of dealing with, and the responsibilities we've had to carry throughout, that's setting us up for a major launching point next year to really embrace a new path. And so that's going to be huge. That's going to be very liberating for a lot of people, but also very disruptive and very turbulent for a lot of people too. So that's something we'll be discussing in the Navigating the Astrology of 2022 webinar in a lot of detail. The other thing too, that's at the end of this year and moving into the start of next year, is Jupiter moving into Pisces. And so that's going to be a big energy in 2022. We already experienced that. So we had it happen, I believe it was June or July through like August or something like that. It was a very short period this year where we had this preview of like what Jupiter and Pisces would bring. It brought a lot of hope. Everything was like opening up. People were like, oh, everything's going to be great, magical. I mean, I kind of knew that that was false hope from the energy, but it brought a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. And as soon as Jupiter retrograded back into Aquarius, that kind of just got squashed. And so I think we will start the year, at least on a certain level, with some hope and optimism. This is happening December through May, end of December through May of 2022, Jupiter in the sign of Pisces. And so, yes, I think that is actually a compassionate energy, is an energy that feels good. It's not going to last though, because Jupiter will move into Aries in May, and then we'll have a completely different situation, which we'll talk about in a lot of detail on the webinar. But it's going to feel like shifting from 2021 to 2022 is going to feel like we're embracing this brand new, like, magical beginning. There will be turbulence for sure. That's going to be part of it too. But it's like we're shifting into something new, and it's like a sense of relief because we've been dealing with this like same energy all year long, and it's been like we are in this like pressure cooker, and being like, and also time has been weird this year too. That's something that I'm going to mention and talk about a little bit. That'll continue through the start of 2022 as well. Like time and timing, like the sense of timing around things has been off for like everyone. And that's something that'll continue at the start of the year. So it's kind of like when you're launching into your New Year's resolutions and your New Year's goals and things like that at the start of the year, everything's going to be a little off kilter. We had that last year too, but this year we're going to be derailed in one final way in order to align us with the path that we need to be on and to give us the foundation that we need for that big launch of the eclipses and the North Node in Taurus and the Uranus North Node conjunction, all the things, again, that we'll talk about in greater detail in the Navigating the Astrology of 2022 webinar, which you are all invited to. And so that is all I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you share this video with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from the information that I share with you today. You can also find me over on Instagram. I share lots of little updates in the moment about the astrology. I teach astrology on there too, and you can get some behind the scenes stuff going on there. So my handle is @astrology with Heather, and I will see you guys next time. Bye everyone.